Good evening and welcome to Denver Open Source Users Group. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be featuring the JAMStack tonight. I am Dan Hillenbrand, and my cohort Mike Barker and I are the organizers of this group. So thank you for joining us. The wonderful people that are our sponsors, I need to announce those right now. There's about 7 of them, so hold on. The first one I'm going to talk about is No Fluff, Just Stuff, which is Jay Zimmerman's thing. It's world-class training for developers and architects, produced by Jay Zimmerman. He wanted us to talk about one upcoming event, the December 7th to 10th Architecture Conference. And DOSUG members will get a discount if you email Jay, and that email address is in the description of tonight's meeting on the Meetup page. He's also running, I noticed, a very good deal for a year-long virtual workshop subscription, which includes a virtual conference pass for one of the conferences. So again, see nofluffjuststuff.com for details for that. Next up, agilelearner.com. And this is Venkat Subramaniam's site with world-class instructor-led online live classes and also recorded training sessions and presentations for developers. And we will have a 1-year subscription for that to give away tonight. Next up, we've got Apex Systems, and they call themselves a world-class technology solutions for digital goals. They're way more than just a recruiting company, but that is definitely one of the things they do. And I spoke with Braden Cullip today, and he has some current job openings in the Denver area, which includes multiple software engineering openings, including Java, AWS, C#, Angular, DevOps, and a few cloud software engineering roles with Node.js and Python. So get a hold of Braden at his address, which is also on our site, the Meetup site. Okay, we've got PeerSource. Carolyn Danielson represents us there, or she likes to speak at our group when we meet in person. They are a recruiting firm for IT, technical sales, and accounting, and it services all 50 states. Right now, they are hiring across the country, including some remote openings. So everyone is encouraged to check out their website to see if there may be something of interest. And that's mypeersource.com. Somebody stole peersource.com already, so make sure you say mypeersource.com. Okay, Okta developer. And they, on their website, they say everything you need to build or integrate authentication and user management. And Matt Rabel, developer advocate from Okta, is managing our live streaming events, including this right now. So thank you, Matt. Okay, we've got 2 more. Skill Distillery. And this is where we met for our last few meetings, and they are an awesome group of people. And they sent me this to say about themselves. Skill Distillery is an immersive, hands-on program where you learn the critical coding skills to build a lasting career, not only as a web developer, but as a full-stack Java application developer. Our goal is to create an environment where you can focus on building the skills you need to transition into a career you love. Okay, the graduates leave our program with Java, object-oriented programming, Spring, SQL, or SQL, depending on what camp you're in, JavaScript, HTML and CSS, AWS, Angular, and general web technologies experience. If you know someone who's wanting to get into this industry, check out their referral program at skilldistillery.com/refer. And just by the way, I've worked with some of the graduates of Skill Distillery, and they are really ready to go when they come out of that program. So high praise for them. Okay, JetBrains. And we will be giving away not 1, but 2 JetBrains Toolbox licenses tonight. If you win this, you will have your choice of individual subscription to any JetBrains Toolbox product. So not just IntelliJ IDEA, although that is one of them, but you've got WebStorm and about 18 others that you can choose from. So tonight, we're going to be learning about JAMStack with our friend Anshuman Purohit. I saw his talk last December at Denver Java User Group, a lightning talk. So I really enjoyed learning what I did then, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. So Anshuman, take it away.
Good evening, Dosag, are you jamming yet? You might be
You got
using
your
JAMStack.
speaker note switched on. So if you want to hit that swap displays up there at the top, the one next to it, there we go.
All right, great. So JAMStack is a proper noun representing a set of architectural principles and web applications. Um, in next hour or so, I talk about what those principles are, why you should care about them, and who is taking advantage of those, and where you shouldn't be using those. As JAMStack gained popularity in recent years, a common criticism that I hear is, isn't JAMStack just a marketing term? The truth is that they are right. JAMStack was the term was invented to rebrand an architectural uh, approach that many of you already use. But the previous term was quite misleading. And nevertheless, the JAMStack is still a way to build sites, and it is quickly gaining adoption amongst the web developers. Hello, I'm Anshuman, and I'm a husband, a father, founder, architect, and most importantly, a passionate developer. I have been designing, developing, and implementing and modernizing systems for property and casualty insurance companies. Lately, a few of my friends, we built a forum for community developers, and I'm responsible for building out the technology platform thereof. So starting out with a website, the website has three main areas. A community info, where we talk about who we are, what we do, and why we started this community. The blog area has some curated content and comments by the members and experts. The web app area is gated for authenticated members. The unstated requirement thereof was the site need to be lightning fast. It need to be scalable, maintainable, and most importantly, secure. The initial blueprint I had over there is I will publish all this community information through modern static pages, and then I'll use some kind of a conventional content management system like WordPress for the blog area with an admin section where authors can easily post their blog posts, and the application would be a progressive web application. That was easy peasy, right? What I realized, I was quite wrong in accomplishing those three key tenets of it being fast, scalable, and secure. Why so? Let's look at the fast part, the easy part, right? First, a trivia question. What does a single second of response time costs, right? There are a lot of statistics. To quote a few, Amazon estimates 1.6 billion of lost revenue a year. Google estimates a single second of response time costs them 20 million lost searches. There is another site estimated that 7 to 10% of conversion rate is what cost a e-commerce platform. There are numerous statistics like this, but plug in your number. What does it cost you for a response time of 1 second. Before that, while you are thinking about it, let's look at a conventional um, web application stack. When your user come in to your website, request for a page, they um, the request is routed to your web server. Web server asks the application server. Application server asks the database server, gets some data, merges it with a template, generates a web page, send it back to the user. The deeper the call stack goes, the longer it takes for the browser to paint its first pixel, and your user is waiting there. So moving forward to scalability. The reason I have a software startup is to control my cost of goods sold, which is information, when I have more and more visitors. I prepared for it. I did all the campaigns to bring in good traffic volume to my website. So one time I got my site all popular, and I got flooded with organic quality traffic that I was working towards. I scaled out my infrastructure. My customer request comes in more and more fryers I deploy. Faster and faster, I provisioned web servers, application server, replicated database, and my front end is tied to backend services tightly, so I couldn't asymmetrically scale my application. Hence, the deeper the tier goes, the larger the infrastructure footprint I need to support, and my cost of goods sold goes higher and higher, right? And at the meantime, it's a community, and there are more and more people putting stress on my infrastructure, right? If the response time and throughput is so important to me that I'm trying to control, I thought I can add more layers of cache between database, application server, web server. I would now have to have a HA proxy and a load balancer. And how do I go about deploying canary deployments into my web servers when a new version of my application comes in? I thought these caches and CDN will work in my favor and solve a problem. It solved a few, but more than that, it introduced more problems. So it went on and on, the list of problems it caused: monitoring, auto-scaling, canary deployment, and database replication, and it went on and on. This is great if you are in the business of managing infrastructure, but mine was a community service, right? As enterprise architects, I constantly see this pattern of operation costs skyrocketing and startups like mine sinking. And then security, right? I know security is a tricky topic, and you can never have a fully secure system, right? Which anyone would like to use, but security is a big thing. When you have a typical CMS like Drupal or WordPress, there are tons of plugins. surface area of attack is huge. And having a large community supported software running your brand name is great. You get community support whenever you run into trouble. So is it great for the hackers? If you don't trust Windows operating system, will you allow WordPress to be your operating system for your brand name? It's so frightening to create bill of material based on which your runtime is created, and finding out all vulnerabilities and patching them on a regular basis that many of us have already stopped tracking that bill of material. Additionally, keeping your database, application server, web server, their OS, and all patched and ready to go is absolute nightmare. Additionally, if any of these vulnerable scripts ever gets compromised, that script gets executed on every user request. So if 10,000 users come and visit your website, that compromised script is getting executed every time. Very frequent for my liking. Then there are fenced garden like instant article published by Facebook or now defunct defunct AMP from Google, who promises that this is too big of a problem. So come to me, I'll solve it for you. But these are fenced garden solutions which we didn't want to go there. So this complex problem that I have at hand, there has to be a better way, right? As it turns out, the solution is much simpler. The cache is your friend. And what is the fastest cache you can have is a static file. CDN are globally distributed cache serving static files in lightning fast speed. No code is faster than no code. So if your runtime is void of scripts, then it is the fastest you will get. Again, no code is more secure than no code. So if your runtime is void, your website is virtually unhackable. So the principle here is perform server-side rendering at build time instead of runtime. That's the key principle here in JAMStack. If you were to take one point home, this is the point you take home, is perform server-side rendering at build time. And there are mission-built frameworks to carry out this build time task of rendering rendering your website at build time, and those mission-built applications are called static site generators. This is how they do it. They take the markup, they call into APIs, the APIs on behind them use the application server and database, but all this is happening at build time. Once they have built everything, then they publish it to CDN, and these content delivery networks, they serve out the same response to every user that I ask for that page. So this is not a new concept. In year 2000, Aaron Swartz coined this term bake, don't fry. So you're pre-baking all your pages well in advance of runtime and serving everyone the same static page. So if you may be asking, if every user is served with the same exact content, where does the dynamic content come from? Once the static contents are loaded into your web browser, the resource intensive task of composing the dynamic content has been offloaded into the browser, and the browser is making the AJAX calls from AJAX calls onto API gateways. A bit of that in a minute, but let's look at the static site generators. There are numerous static site generator. Last I checked, there were more than 450 site generators out there. And they're all written in different languages and using different modern JavaScript frameworks. For example, Next and Gatsby use React and server-side JavaScript, Node.js, without browser at build time to query API and compose the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, optimize the images. And Go does it a lot faster using Go language. Nuxt uses Vue for the templating framework. And I even heard that there is a static site generator built with Swift. You may ask that how do I go about choosing these site generators? There are various best practices you'll use. And one of them is what JavaScript framework you are most comfortable with, and for building browser-based application, and use that onto your site generators. That way you understand how the package managers work, how the application works, what code is gets executed at runtime versus at consistently the same code can be reused at the build time. So like I was saying, the static file, the static JavaScript gets loaded into the browser, but it queries the API and rehydrates the content in the browser. This time around, it has the full access to the browser DOM, and it's refreshing only with the data pulled in from the database. But the web page itself has been completely painted and presenting, so it gives the impression that your time to first paint is a lot quicker. So we spoke about the first principle of pre-baking your website at build time. We spoke about the second principle of all the resource-intensive tasks now the browsers can handle of making the call into the backend. So you are offloading some of this resource-intensive tasks into modern browser platforms. So in this mix, you open up a new treasure chest of using the best of the breed, expert-provided APIs and content that you can build a content mesh using platforms like Okta for user management, identity and access management, You can use Algolia for your search. You can use many of these platforms in e-commerce like Stripe, Snipcart, Salsify, Shopify, and we'll look at one example where we use Shopify as inventory management and how do we bake it into our static site generator in a few minutes. And I would say go use these experts, use on their pre-built component, and it's just a matter of including them. Why would you build a messaging system when Twilio and SendGrid have perfected it? And unless it is your core system differentiator, you wouldn't build that. And what if it is your core differentiator? I would urge you to look at some of the serverless mechanism of building the APIs. And the other technology that I'm quite excited about is GraphQL. The reason is not because it's the new shiny thing, but because how you control the granularity of your API, and the whole schema is available to you, but you choose what you want in return, and the API adapts to your usage. And we'll have a look at that in our demo in a minute. So the other third principle of the JAMStack is how it handles atomic deployments, right? One of the challenges with previous generation of CMS is the data cache inconsistency. One page refers to something else, the other page does not, other asset does not exist yet in the new version of the CDN cache, right? The solution there is couldn't have been simpler. These static assets that got generated at the build time gets checked into version control. They guarantee the atomic deployment. You get a confidence of version roll out and version roll back every time in a consistent way. CDN caches are always consistent because they are sourcing it from a specific commit of into Git. Since you're publishing, you're essentially these CDNs are sourcing it from Git. You get your entire site hosted for free, right? And this is what GitHub pages do, and that's why they're able to give this hosting of GitHub pages for free. You have essentially eliminated cost of goods sold. Applaud for JAMStack here. And the community applauded for it, and that's how this JAMStack was born as an acronym of three key technologies that is being, three key techniques are being used here: the JavaScript, API, and markup. So those three principles constitutes the JAMStack. But let's look at a little bit about the history. It's a long way coming to this point. In year 2000, bake don't fry concept was introduced by Aaron Swartz. And 2008, the co-founder and CEO, ex-CEO of GitHub, Tom Preston Werner, came up with a specific concept around static site generators and named it Jekyll. And later on, GitHub Pages made it popular because it was free, available to it. But more importantly, they gave the idea of static site generators. And the idea was I can author my whole post in Markdown in my favorite editor, and then push it, and some Git automation, a webhook takes it and publishes it all the way to the web, and my CDN caches gets refreshed. And that's why it's an important year there. And then later on, Netlify and these companies came in and provided this low-cost hosting for static sites. And in 2016, they announced it, but it's a long discussion that gave a new name to this set of architectural principles. Of those three principles I spoke about, a name, a acronym of JAMStack, right? And then the following year, JAMStack conference brought in more popularity into it. But May of this year, 2020, they realized that the JAM stack is not doing, not rightly representing the architectural principles, right? First of all, JavaScript API markup seems like things every web developer uses in their stack. So it does not mean that they're doing and following the architectural principles. And the second is there is no stack here. There is no technology stack here. And the third point was that you don't have to use JavaScript in your static site generator if you chose to. You might use Hugo. Does it mean that if you use Hugo, then it is not a JAMStack? And that's why they proposed a new name where JAMStack is a proper noun, and it represents a set of architectural principles rather than a technology stack or a language per se. And the example there it was given was the AJAX with capital A and JAX small lives on long after people have stopped using XML in browser data formats. So then comes a point where a lot of the content authors, they missed the convenience of a WYSIWYG admin piece that the conventional CMS authors were using. And that's where people tried to separate the content from presentation, and that's how a new breed of software came in, is headless CMS. There are two broad category of headless CMS out there. One is Git based, where all the contents are stored on Git and published on Git, but they provide a front end of how you author the basic content and somewhat of a poor man's WYSIWYG experience in there. And then you have API-driven CMS, and those are provides a API to store and retrieve your content, and that's where the Strapi, Ghost, and Sanity kind of headless CMS. So it's time to do some fun coding stuff. I'll walk you through 2 examples of websites. Let's look at the first website. Let me stop sharing.
We need some Jeopardy music right about now.
Okay.
Three, two, one, now. Darn it, didn't work. All right, there we are.
All right. So this is a Gatsby site generator that connects to my Shopify inventory that I have created right here. And what this inventory is basically, it's pulling a set of products from AliExpress using a connector called Overlow. And that's what this inventory looks like. Here it has the products, it has few pictures, and all this is being synced with AliExpress. I want to create an e-commerce website on top of this using using Gatsby, which is a static site generator, right? Let's look at the code and let's see how it is working right now. Okay, so I created this very simple website using this starter template, hello world template, installed two node packages, the Shopify buy and the Gatsby source Shopify, and added them as dependency into my project. And then I started up the server, right? It went in and connected to that Shopify's store or inventory that I mentioned using the access token and pulled in the data from there and made all that data available through GraphQL, like so. So just a quick comment about GraphQL, like it publishes the whole schema, and through a simple query language, you pick which endpoint you are going against and what level of granularity you want to bring back, right? And in the Gatsby world, switching back to Gatsby, you create this query, you define this query, and Gatsby, when you are then doing a static site building, at the build time, it makes a query into this GraphQL endpoint. There is no browser DOM at this point, and brings out those inventory list here and puts it inside this public folder. And right here in the products.js, right here in page data, products page data, you got that query result here stored as a static file, right? So if I format it, you can see this is the same result you got from doing the GraphQL query. Here, you got the full set of inventory in here. And you can then pick and choose and adjust your query if you need alt text and those kind of information. You can pick and choose and do it that way. And the other thing it did for me, which is not so apparent, is it runs runs a similar query there and builds a bunch of static pages for each item returned as a product, right? It creates a product page using a product template and publishes all those things into this public folder. This whole public folder now can be pushed into CDN through Git, and this is what gets published as static pages. And React at runtime takes those static JSON payload and creates the web page. So now when you go into products, you have the whole page loaded with this information. And this link here, it's a deep link which was created at the build time. And this also fires another GraphQL, which gets merged into the style or the theme of your web page, and it generates and shows you that page. The other website, which is a blog that I created quite easily is through Jekyll, and the best part is this is hosted for free in GitHub Pages, right? And here it does search and search result. And also, once you are in here, you can do share and likes. And this is an example of how I'm leveraging other services, other third-party services, to post comments into my news articles, right? And here it has login, and if you log in, you can edit your comments, you can add new comments, and those kind of functionality which Discuss publishes is available just by me adding a very short code in my template. This is all I had to do, is to include this comments.html, and the comments.html is what I got from Discuss, and that adds a whole new functionality into my all my posts. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm standing on shoulder of monsters. So that's quite an interesting finding for me. So now going back into my presentation, my PowerPoint somehow it gave up, so I'll have to restart. So I'll stop sharing and reshare afterwards.
We need some hold music, Dan. Do you want to sing for us?
I'll sing about our door prizes. Maybe you saw in the comments, if you want a door prize, go ahead and put your meetup name followed by either Jet if you want the JetBrains product, or Agile if you want the Agile Lunar product, or either if you would prefer, if you wouldn't mind either one. If you don't want to put that in the comments, you can directly message me via the meetup messaging, so that'll work too.
Okay.
You want me to do a countdown? Oh yeah, perfect timing.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
The force quit there. We need you to kill that. Thank you.
Okay, so how do you do your own JAMStack? I have a few resources for you to review through and look through the static site generators. Look through what are if you need a headless CMS, and some of the core principles of JAMStack are published in this resource. Then go through the third-party APIs and third-party third-party services that you might be using in your website or web application, and review through the best practices. Like I was saying, review through serverless technologies for your own APIs, and review through the GraphQL. It might be useful. And then build your website, publish it through Netlify, Render, Vercel, GitHub Pages is free. So use that. And to wrap up our presentation, these are the few takeaways that I thought is unique in JAMStack. So pre-render using a static site generator, minimal code at the runtime, served statically through CDN and Git. You get continuous atomic deployment because of that, which is I found it quite useful. Progressively enhance your web page through AJAX call at the runtime to APIs, and leverage on API economy, if you would. So who uses these JAMStack principle in building their sites? There are numerous in thousands, but these are the only few I picked because these people are proud of their success in their journey through the JAMStack architectural principles, right? Nike, Burger King, Digital.gov, Tim Horton, Smashing Magazine is another one. And then where do you not use JAMStack? If the content you're publishing is all user generated and you are getting thousands of posts a day, right? Every time someone publishes, you run them. You can run your build and regenerate your site, publish it. It's doable, but might not render well in long run. If there are continually updating site, if it's let's say weather, and let's say there is a timer or there is a time in different time zones, your website might not render well to JAMStack. And nothing to say that you cannot do that. In fact, somebody did this experimentation where every minute they trigger a site build that brings out a time in several time zones, and then they push those static files up into Git, and that works, but that's not what you are leveraging the architectural principles in there. And another type of site is a dashboard. The content is always changing, and dashboard, you are automatically doing calls from JavaScript APIs to refresh content or pushing information into your website. Then those kind of information might not, and those kind of website might not render well to this architectural principles. Thank you. And I'll take on any question or anything that I can touch on or look through the code.
Yeah, so we do have one question from Jeff Schmidt. I'll put it on the screen here. He says, I'm reading Hugo in action, and it is very compelling. Is it not as good than the 2 SSGs you demonstrated? Should I be perusing something else?
No, if you are comfortable with the language, Hugo is really fast. So if your site generates thousands of blog posts, for example, thousands of updated content, Hugo has been really fast. So the speed might outwin the learning curve people normally have going into Go language.
And I'll just add to that, my team is big fans of Hugo. We're currently using Jekyll for our developer.okta.com/blog. And it works, but Hugo's like so much faster, right? Jekyll, like if we make a change, because we've been, publishing blog posts for like 4 years, if we make a change, it takes like a minute to change and re-render, right? And Hugo's like a second. So it's pretty nice that way. And another one is ViewPress. We use that for our developer documentation, and that's a static site generator as well. It works really nice. So I don't see any other questions in here. So I will thank you and ask Dan if there's anything that he wanted to say for the ending of the meetup.
Sure. Well, first, thank you, Anshuman, for doing this. We know it's stressful to get up here and do that, so we appreciate that. Any of our other members that are interested in presenting something that they're interested in, we've got all next year is wide open still. So give it a thought. We do have Michael Carducci coming up in November, and he should be performing some magic for us, I'm sure.
Some virtual magic.
Yeah. Now, tonight's presentation will be recorded, and you'll be able to watch it on YouTube. As like last month, we had Jim Tyrell from Red Hat talk about Quarkus, and that was an excellent show. So give that a watch if you're interested in that. And I think that's about it.
All right. Thanks for coming, y'all. Thanks, Anshuman, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all. Thank you.